Hello, I'm Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and today it happens to be Thanksgiving here in the United States. It's November 25th, and welcome to this live if you're here. Um, I'm in a different location, as you can see, different lighting. It's Thanksgiving, so we have the table set over here. We're going to have some turkey and stuffing. I'm at my friend's house, Marge and Fred's, who you hear about in these videos. So they're they're still in the process of cooking dinner, and I'm in here talking to you. So it's a stormy day, so you see the storm outside, and that's the news for now. This month, November of 2021, I've been talking about narcissism and the spectrum of narcissism. In a sense, when we think of a person who's arrogant and self-important and judging and competitive in that sort of I'm better than everybody else way, we think that's narcissism. And the fact of the matter is that narcissism is like on a spectrum of the degree to which we experience ourselves as self-important in that arrogant kind of way, but there's also the self-importance in terms of seeing ourselves as the victim, or the person that is sick a lot, or the victim, the sick person, the person that is impoverished. They sometimes have a sense of self-importance, like somebody should take care of me because I am destitute, or I am sick, or I am, there's a demandingness of somebody taking care of them. That's another view of what narcissism can look like. So there's this whole spectrum of what it is and what it looks like. We think of it in terms of a personality disorder, where it really gets in the way of people functioning. So most of us are somewhat high functioning narcissists in one way or another. And it's really good to understand that. And that's why I've spent 4 weeks on this subject, because to understand all the ways that narcissism looks like, gets right English, all the way that it looks, helps us to see what's really happening inside ourselves, and how we're perceiving ourselves in relation to other people, in terms of our own value, our own worth, our self-importance, our confidence, our self-trust, all of those things. And the bottom line with narcissism is, if we are using other people or things or pets, we're using people to get a sense of self-importance, then that's what, in a sense, narcissism is we're using other people without their knowing, without their agreement to be used in that way. So quite often people get married, and if you say, how are you using your person? It's like, well, we both agreed we like to have sex, so we use each other in that way. We have this partnership in terms of sexuality, companionship. My husband likes to cook, so that's a good thing for me because I use him as the main cook. He uses me because I pay the bills. Those kinds of things. Is there's a mutuality and a communication and an honesty about that. But quite often people are not having that conversation. So when you've asked them, or if you ask them, how are you using me? Or how are you using your spouse? Or how are you using your children? You'll get some really interesting answers that are relevant to the self-importance, rather than a real care and partnership with the person. So for instance, when I was a kid, I was in high school, and my parents found out I was sleeping with my boyfriend, and they said they were so angry because they said, what will the neighbors think? What will our friends think? So that was the big thing. They weren't concerned about my welfare or my concerns, or what it was like for me in this relationship, and what that was doing for our relationship, my parents and me. They were concerned with their relationship with their friends. What would their friends say? What would the neighbors say? So that was a very narcissistic perspective. People go, oh, my children are going to the best schools, or my child is the best trumpeter in the concert, or my child is the best. And there's a sense of arrogance about that. This is a reflection of who I am, as opposed to my child is doing a really cool thing. I'm so proud of them because they're doing that. So that's the difference that we're looking at. And so when we're using people for our own self-importance, it's not necessarily it's how we do life right now. But it's not necessarily getting you closer to your authentic self and the fullest expression of who you are in this life. Last week, in the last 3 weeks, I've talked about this exercise that I do, and you can do it with yourself, which is, first of all, ask yourself, what are you afraid people are going to find out or decide about you? What are you afraid people will find out or decide about you? The second question is, what would happen if they found that out about you? So, for instance, people would say, what are you afraid people find out or decide about you? That I'm a fraud, that I'm a failure, I'm not very smart, I'm not very creative, don't have much to offer. Okay. And so then the next question is, well, what would happen if people found that out? And that's where we go, where we have this imagined shattering or humiliation or a rejection. Okay, if they find that out, they'll reject me, or I'll just be humiliated to a point of annihilation, or I'll get killed. Somebody will kill me if they do that. So we have this thing of, what are you afraid people are going to find out about you? And again, there's a consequence. If they find that out, this is what will happen to me in our fear-based self. The third question is, what do you do so people don't find that out? So as soon as we get into that conversation of our fear, this is what people are going to believe about me or see or think or decide about me. And so I do A, B, and C, or L, K, and R, so they don't find that out. All of that is an indication that you don't get to be you. You have to do, and you have to strategize, and you have to manipulate, and you have to contrive to make sure that people see you for who you want them to see you as, and not be that person that gets rejected, humiliated, annihilated, killed, booted out, whatever that is. And so that's the way most of us live, is in that fear they're going to find out, and here's all the strategies I do. And then if you wanted to ask a fourth question, is like, when do you get to be you? When do you get to be you? And sometimes people say, oh, I got to feel that when I was in Key West and I saw a sunset, and it was so amazing. I just felt so full in that moment. Or when my first child was born, or, I was watching a really sad movie and I really felt connected to what was happening in the movie, and I started to cry, and I just felt so myself in that moment because there was so much relief in what I was. So there's these moments. But the point of the work that I do as a transformational coach and in the training of transformational coaches is to bring people to their essential nature, so that you get to be the fullest expression of yourself. What I say is the fulfillment of your human spirit, the fulfillment of your human spirit. And if you're not doing that, working towards the fulfillment of your human spirit, then you're in this strategy, in this spectrum of narcissism. Like, how do I get this from other people? And we do that with money. We're always trying to think of how, and money is just a whole nother spectrum, if you will, but it's a sense of self-importance. Okay, how much money do I have, and what will other people think of me, and how will I look good having the money that I have? All those kinds of things. So that's what we've been talking about over the last 3 weeks, I think it is. And this week, what we're talking about is we're talking about the spiritual healings that come through this process. Oops, let me look, hang on a second. The spiritual lessons to be learned through narcissism. And so I have a whole list of things to be learned and to grow through, and or processes that you might want to consider using to support yourself in becoming more who you are. I'm a little distracted because the lighting is different. My hair looks like a different color. It looks more red, and it's just kind of a little distracting. I'm not used to that color, but it's the lighting here. That's all that's here. So these YouTube lives, and I want to say the intention is to reveal the patterns that you've been doing for a very long time. I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and she is having she's leaving a relationship, and she's been in that process for I think 8 months or 9 months, maybe even 10 months. And the separation from a person quite often begins to reveal things about yourself if you've ever left a relationship. But when working with a client, it reveals something about themselves they've never seen before. And so quite often in partnerships, there's a dependency on a way of being in that partnership. And it becomes obvious that there's a pattern of being that, for instance, this person has been in, I'll call her Claire. She has had that same pattern in every relationship she's had with a man. And it was like, wow, that's really interesting. And I said, how long have you had that? And she says, I think when I was a kid, I still had that pattern where I realized myself to be A, B, and C, even at 6 years old. And this is where I knew I was doing this. And so these patterns are things that we've been with for a very long time. And when we can begin to reveal those patterns for ourselves, then we begin to be conscious of, okay, so is this really how I want to be in my life? In a sense, these patterns and these strategies to maneuver and make sure that there's a sense of self-importance. Or can you let that go and go, yeah, I'm going to show up, see what happens when I'm just me. And that's the big practice. Inevitably, that's the practice. I'm just going to show up and be me and see what happens. And as I've said to you guys many times, that's what I'm doing here is I'm just showing up as me, giving you information, sharing experiences, my direct experience and some of others, my clients and trainees, and see what happens. That's authentic, transparent living. And that's what I want to encourage for you because you get to be you. And the other element of this that's so important for me is that is the perspective, and for me, the knowing that we are all divine beings. We are this spiritual being having a human experience. And the spiritual being is here to be in that fullest expression of self. It wants you to be the fullest expression of you, not the strategies, not the staying safe, not the protective armoring that we do so we don't get found out and left and rejected, but to be the fullest of ourselves, fully trusting ourselves, fully trusting that as part of the divinity of all that is, that it's all good. Now it takes practice for me, I mean, there's some people that can go, man, I get it. I'm divine. And so is everyone else. And I'm going to live that way and feel totally and completely safe with themselves. That's what the point is to feel safe with yourself, as opposed to, again, armoring and structuring and strategizing. So the more that we can practice noticing when we're strategizing and when we're not, when we're in angst or anxiousness, and when we're in fear, and when we're an authentic being, that's a really good thing. And one of the things that we'll be talking about today is being in the moment. Like one of the things we don't know, it's such a fascinating thing that happens when I start talking to people and clients and trainees about being, that the foundation of this work is that we are beings, and that from the state of being that we're in, we choose actions. So when I'm in a state of love and trust and knowing and peace, I'm in a flow and I'm connected and I'm relaxed. When I'm in angst and concerned and worried about things, then I have to think, and I have to work, and I have to strategize to make sure that I have everything in place. So for instance, I have my little iPad here in my notes, But other than that, it's a pretty fluid conversation because I feel very trusting of myself, and I'm constantly guided with downloads and what I should say or what I don't need to say. And so that's that flow, and that's what I want. But so few of us are willing to trust that to be in the moment, because when we're in the moment, we start to feel things that may be uncomfortable. We don't want to feel that discomfort, and so we avoid and distract and ignore and deny, and do things, take on strategies like drinking or eating or gambling or debting or watching TV or electronics, to avoid and distract ourselves from being and being who we are. And that could mean being sad or being angry or being anxious, all of those things that are normal, everyday human experiences. And not only human, but it is divine, that every energy, every thought, every emotion is part of the divinity of all that is. And so we can respect and honor that rather than shunning it and saying, no way, can't do that. Can't think that. A lot of people say, oh, I can't be angry. That's not spiritual. But anger is an emotion. It's an energy. It just is. It's an energy. And all energy is part of the divine divinity universe that we live in. That's my perspective. Hi, Marge. I'm glad you're here. I'm on this different computer and your name came up, but it's very far away and I don't have my glasses on. So nice to see you. Of course, I'm in your house, but it's nice to see you on the video as well. One of the things I want to let you know too is that on YouTube, on my channel, you can find a boot camp. It's called Inward Bound Boot Camp for Self-Transformation. It's 20 videos over 4 weeks, or however often you want to look at those videos. But it's really about this integration process and this incremental process of self-transformation. And it's the boot camp. So these are the beginning skills and tools. Not only beginning, these are the essential skills that I have to use over and over and over and over again to bring myself to further levels of truth, further levels of self-trust, further levels of experiencing the fullness of who I am in my human spirit. And so if you're interested, check down below in the descriptions and you'll see the link to the boot camps. It takes you to a page to sign in if you'd like, so that you'll get a notice that that the boot camp is available for you, so you'll remember. Otherwise, you can just go to my playlist and see the boot camps, and there it is. So if that would be helpful for you in this process, I totally encourage you to look at that. We're working on a workbook, guidebook, journal that's going to come out soon with that as well. So take a look. Keep posted. So here's some of the things that are really important in this process of this, in a sense, the spiritual learnings. What's there to learn? And the big question is like, number one, and you've heard me say this before in terms of the 4 questions that I ask clients, and I ask myself all the time, what is it you want? So if you're experiencing suffering, and that can mean discomfort, that can mean anger or sadness or anxiousness, not trusting. If there's a degree of suffering that you're experiencing, then you are not in full peace. And I want for you to know that place of your essential self and the capacity for peace, peace and contentment and serenity. And if you are experiencing whatever degree of suffering you are, or discontent, irritability, then that's an indication that you might want to consider doing something different for yourself, or thinking differently, or being aware of how you're being so that you can see that pattern of being. Like I used to be in a pattern of dread all the time. I didn't even know that until one moment it was like, wow, I've been in this same experience of being for 60 years. And it was like, wow, that's that. Now I got to get myself out of that. And we can basically get ourselves out of most of these situations, these internal situations, if we have enough convictions and if we're dedicated. And all we have to do, again, like in the boot camp, this is a little caterpillar, if you're wondering, is incrementally begin to take the steps. And the first step is to be aware of, wow, I'm not happy. I'm not content. I'm not in serenity. And there's a degree to which that's true for you. It might be out of 100, you might be 50% discontent. That might be enough. It might be that enough. It's totally personal what you choose for you. And the spiritual lessons here, and again, for me, the place to bring ourselves to it, if you were in high school, what we're trying to do is graduate from high school, right? If we're in college, we're trying to graduate. We're meeting the requirements so that we can graduate. And when I'm looking at this process, like, okay, do you want to graduate from the suffering and the settling and the surviving so that you can actually really enjoy your life to a greater degree and have the capacities to make the differences so that you continue to build on that? So for instance, you're in high school and you knew how to study and you knew how to write papers and you knew how to do what you needed to do, and you graduated, and then you go, yeah, and I want to go to college. And so I want to increase and level up. And so you use the same reading, writing, thinking processes, but to a larger degree, a higher degree. And that took you through college. And then you go, yeah, I'd really like to go for a master's. And so utilizing that same process, you go to the next level. It's the same practice. You got to read, you got to write, you got to be able to think in a way that shifts and shifts your context so that you can increase in the capacity to know more. And not only know more in terms of intellect, but know more in your heart, in your intuition, and be able to, what's this word? Yeah, the PhD with three master's degree goes, yeah, I don't know what that word is. To be able to receive and hear and know things differently than what our consensus view of reality is. So we keep expanding our capacities to know, and that's exciting. And it's exciting to be at a place in my journey where I'm going, wow, I can really see how I'm different than I was even 3 months ago in my capacity for courage, my capacity for self-love and trust, my capacity to believe and receive more of the divinity and know myself more in that capacity. You know, even incrementally, I can feel the difference. And that's what I want for you. I want you to go, yeah, that's available to you, because I'm not special at all in this. I just have been working very hard to know myself. And I want you to know yourself, because it's just a brilliant, wonderful fulfillment of my human spirit, and it'll be a fulfillment of your human spirit. So I'm a student of the Course in Miracles and a book called Oneness by Rasha, and been listening to Paul Selig, who is a channel for the guides, Melchizedek, and there's others, but those three in particular are all saying the same thing. These are phenomenal books that have been channeled, phenomenal teachings, and they're all saying the same thing. And the other day I read in the Course in Miracles, the sick must heal themselves, for the truth is in them. The sick must heal themselves, for the truth is in them. So where there is sickness and in dis-ease, if we think about dis-ease, it means you're not in ease, you're not in serenity, you're not in that place of contentment. When you're not that, then you are the ones that have to heal yourself, because that healing capacity is in you. And that's why I talk about a lot the self-empowerment. I wrote a book, Self-Empowerment 101. You can get on Amazon. And I can put that below too. But Self-Empowerment 101 is hey, you are the one that needs to do this for you because nobody else can do it for you. And as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to every single person that each of us has to do the work of cultivating courage, cultivating knowing, cultivating awareness, cultivating the willingness to take a step and do things a little bit differently. I was talking to my friend Marge yesterday, and I said one of the times that I really, really love being in her presence is when she's painting, and she's a wonderful, wonderful acrylic artist. And she was like, "What?" And I go, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you know why that is?" And she goes, "No, I don't know." And I go, "Well, what's the quality of being when when you're painting?" And she's like, "I'm making mistakes. I'm worried about colors. And she just kind of went into this place of negativity in a sense, like, and I go, "Okay, so let's look at what else is there." And she goes, I'm being in a creative state. I'm in a state of flow. I'm in a state of, in a sense, relationship with the painting. I'm in a relationship with the colors. I'm truly present." And I go, "And what else?" And she said, "I make mistakes, but I still stay present. I don't make myself wrong. I don't beat myself up. I don't become a horrible, terrible person because it's not right." So there's the willingness uh, to keep persistence and tenacity and patience and courage and self appreciation. So all of these elements of being are available to us always. And even in terms of you watching this now, that's going on for you. That you're here, that you're present, that you're listening, that you're connecting to what I'm saying in ways, and you're also listening for, yeah, no, that's not my experience. And you're able to listen in a way that's shifting how you're being with yourself. That's what I want for you. So what I'm saying in this, just even this number one, this spiritual lessons in narcissism, is you become responsible and accountable for your own healing, your own well-being, your own wholeness, your own sense of self-value from your heart. And it becomes less and less about painting. And I was saying also to Marge, when I show people my paintings, it's not like, "Look what I did. Isn't this great? Isn't this pretty?" It's more like the tenacity to stay present, the compellingness to work at this in a way. It's not for me. I don't know how the degree to which it's I have a gift. I don't know, but I think I have a gift of tenacity, whether it's my writing or my painting or I'm knitting. It's like a tenacity that keeps me going and learning as I go. That tenacity is what I'm showing, and the courage to keep going, the daringness to keep going. When I'm showing people my painting, this is where I'm at in this process of tenacity. This isn't an ego thing for me, even though I'm like very proud of this picture. It's really more about this, what this is an indication of, the self-empowerment that it took to create this piece. And I'm sure people who've created songs or poetry or books or cooking recipes that are like phenomenal, making Thanksgiving as a celebration in a way that's fulfilling. All of that is what this is about. We all have that capacity to heal ourselves and bring that wholeness and well-being. So narcissism, and we have to choose, what is it we want? What's the degree of really, truly experiencing the essential nature of who you are? In this process, then, it's really a matter of accountability. Now, when a person is highly narcissistic, whether it's the spectrum of I'm a victim and I'm in poverty and sick, or the person that says, "Aren't I great? I'm beautiful. I'm sexy. I've got all the money," whatever that is as long as they're able to do that and use other people, there's a lack of accountability for making those choices. And I've been on both sides of the narcissism. In a sense, I can really see where I was narcissistic, and I could also see where I was in relationship with a narcissist, and how I was compliant with that. And I was compliant because, number one, I was using the person for my own stuff. And number two, I didn't want to lose the relationship. I was afraid the relationship would end. That's a using. Number three is there were parts of the relationship that were really wonderful, and I didn't want to lose those. Number four, I didn't want to make this person angry at me, because it's ugly when people were getting angry at and I didn't know how to deal with that when there was confrontation. So I basically just apologized a lot and tried to find how I could fix myself so that I could live with that. But I was not being accountable, and I wasn't requiring accountability. I was complicit. So where we are complicit, we have to look at that. And that complicity, it serves us, and it serves this person. And as long as we are being that, then we're part of the problem, if you want to call it a problem. We're part of the patterning. We're part of the strategy. And so accountability is really important. And in terms of saying, okay, here's what's true for me. I'm not happy in this relationship, maybe 50% of the time, maybe only 40% of the time. But I like A, B, and C. Okay. And am I willing to have a conversation with this person and say, can't deal with that? And if I have had those conversations, does something change? And if they don't, then I got to look at that. Not with hope. This is another big thing in terms of healing and wholeness is, where are we holding out? I hope there will be change. Or I did this differently. I'm hoping that will change them. Again, that's a strategy. If I do this, maybe they'll do that. That's a hope. I hope they'll do this. I wish they would be different. We live in that for so long. It's almost an addiction that we live in that hope and not in the truth of, hey, if this is as good as it gets without hope, is this something you want to stay in? No. Okay, good. Good to know. So I'm kind of combining all of these lists. I got a whole list of things, but they're all coming out at one time. Is, first of all, being accountable. Am I being complicit? Is my complicitness because I don't want to lose the relationship? Am I hoping things will change? Am I strategizing and hoping that the strategies or that I'm going to take care of myself and be less of an enabler? In the codependency world, enabling is huge. That's what we all do. We all enable each other. And we allow people to lie. We allow people to rationalize. We allow people to justify. And as long as we're allowing, we're part of and complicit with this situation. And so that's where codependency in relation to addictions of, alcohol or drugs or substances or debting or sex or whatever, there's a codependency group out there. And that's the truth in terms of adult children. Adult children of alcoholics was the first element of that, where those of us who grew up in alcoholic families, we learned this complicitness. We learned that it was, you can't talk about things. We learned these strategies for being. We don't get to be authentic in that. So there are AC, now they're called adult children groups, because in some ways we're all adult children. We're all children trying to use childish strategies, as opposed to saying, no, that doesn't work. And it's like, I'm willing to have a great life. And so I have to decide about this relationship. And the relationship is with anybody, whether it's ourselves or with our work or whatever that relationship is. If it's not creating a fulfillment in your human spirit, then it's probably a contradiction to that which you say you want. So that's really important. So accountability, wishing and hoping. Notice the degree to which you hope and wish, and see what would be true if that hope wasn't there. That was a big deal for me when I said, if this is as good as it gets with this person, without the hope and the without the hope and the wishing, or the job that I was in, or the city I was living in, as long as there was that, I hope this would change. It's not an empowerment. Hope is not empowering that way. We need hope on a deep, deep level. But when we use it as a strategy to avoid and ignore what is in the moment, then it's a strategy. So we just want to be aware of that. Hey, Frank. Frank. Hi, Fred. Thanks for being here. One of the things I realized when I was working in recovery, I worked in recovery in Nova Scotia for 8 years, and as a codependent adult child living with an addict and a narcissist and blah blah blah, I realized that one of my truths was that don't do unto others what has been done unto you. So for that meant if I rejected somebody, in a sense I had to leave, then I felt that that was a wrong thing to do because I had been abandoned and I had been betrayed and I had been hurt by people who kind of walked away. So the rule, don't do unto others what's been done to you, is like I can't leave this person because then I would be abandoning them and that would hurt them. And I don't want them to feel what I felt. That's a big deal. I mean, it's another narcissistic strategy, if you will, but it was something that is in place sometimes as an enabler to say, I don't want them to feel what I felt. I don't want them to experience that grief or that loss. So we hold the responsibility in that moment to make choices so other people don't have to deal with their own humanness, their own capacities to deal with grief and loss and betrayal or abandonment or rejection. But they're also not dealing with, if you're saying, hey, this relationship doesn't work for me, that's a truth for you. And so for another person to actually deal with the truth, that's a good thing to do, isn't it? To help, to just be who you are in service to other people growing themselves and their capacity to be with what's true. We don't see it that way. We see it more from a fear-based place. I'm afraid they'll feel this way and that'll make them sad, and I don't want them to feel sad. Your intention is not to make them feel sad. Your intention is to be honest and truthful and live in your knowing and live in your fullest expression, as opposed to damper yourself and damper your expression of self in service to somebody else so they can be happy, but you're suffering. You can do that. You can keep doing that. I was doing that for a long time. And it's a choice. And if I had known then what I know now, I probably would it'd be a different life for sure. But it wasn't. I had to go through the learning of this. I had to go through the struggle. I had to go through the courage to say, this is what's true for me. This is what I need to be in my fulfillment. I was living in San Jose in the Bay Area and with my partner. And it was like, this doesn't make me happy. I want to go to Orcas Island. And so I moved to Orcas Island, and the partnership sustained itself for about 6 more years. But at some point it just didn't work anymore. And then that was a good thing. But if we don't live in our own truth and our own knowing, in our own highest good, then we're not contributing to the highest good of everybody. And somehow that level of self-importance says they won't be able to handle the grief. They won't be able to handle the rejection. They won't be able to. Only I can. And again, that's that self-important thing, isn't it? Only I can deal with the suffering. And I used to feel that way a long time ago. It's like, I'm really good at handling suffering. And so I'm going to do that. It's like, hell no, not anymore. If they have stuff, they need to deal with their stuff. But that accountability is really, really important, to let people deal with their own stuff. And it's scary, but they have the capacity to do that. It's part of knowing that. And that, it took a lot of training. And in a sense, as a therapist, this is my training. My training is people need me. People need somebody to help them. People need a structure or support in that kind of codependency way. That is what I learned as a therapist. The coaching is like, this is an individual on the path. I'm a thinking partner. And my job is to empower them to empower themselves and to see where they're capitulating and, oh, it's hard. Everybody says when we have a conversation in my coaching, they all say, yeah, but that's really hard. And I go, yeah. And your point, what's your point? Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, it's difficult. But what makes that so? Because I have to give this up, or I have to stop doing that, or I have to train myself. It's like, yeah. If you want to learn a musical instrument, you train. If you want to learn to write, you train. If you want to learn to be an athlete, you train. This is training yourself to be the human being that you want to be, to have what you want. It's a training. And it takes work and dedication and discipline. And there has to be a level of compassion and compellingness in that for yourself. Otherwise, you won't do it. And that's okay, because you don't have to do it. It's just what is here. So Alyssa Fezzik is here too. Hi, Alyssa. Nice to see you here. Thank you. I also wanted to, wow, this time is going so fast. One of the things that that I read in the Course in Miracles was this. It said, fear is a symptom to your own deep sense of loss. By interpreting fear correctly as a positive affirmation of the underlying belief it masks, you are undermining its perceived usefulness by rendering it useless. Okay, what that means is, if you're feeling afraid and you go, oh, that means that I must have some unresolved deep loss that I haven't yet dealt with. Okay, I'm going to deal with that loss. And in doing that, then the fear just becomes an indicator. It's like a something that says, oh, I've got something I haven't dealt with yet, because that fear is there. Then the fear doesn't become it just is like, oh, fear is indicating that I've got something I haven't dealt with yet. I'm going to deal with that, and then I won't have the fear. And this, on one level, is about vibration. But it's on another level is all these interpretations that we have that fear is there to protect us, or fear is there, to serve us. And it is, but not in terms of creating more fear. It's there to say, okay, there's something unresolved. And I had this experience last week, just to give it to you really quickly. We had a lot of rain, and so I live on this dirt road that can get washed away, and big ruts can get in it and all those kinds of things. And every winter, I have this fear that that road is going to get washed away. And so we had tons of rain, major rainstorm, like the 100-year storm or something like that. And I just watched myself be in this panic and fear. And finally, it was like the rain was over, the road was still there, all was good. And I went, I got to deal with this underlying thing that's causing me this fear and panic, because it's irrational. In most fear, if you look at it, is irrational. We think that it's a survival issue, and it's not. It's irrational. So I was able to look at a number of elements which brought me to some deep, deep loss and grief. And very shortly after that, the fear of my road washing away diminished. So even today, where we're having quite a bit of heavy rain, I don't have that sense of trauma as I had, because I dealt with the underlying fear. Not the underlying fear, the underlying grief. Because the fear is, I don't want to feel that again. I don't want the road to wash away, and then I have to deal with all those issues of abandonment or isolation or whatever. Don't want to deal with that. That's the fear. And so when we go, okay, I'm just going to deal with it, then fear becomes a positive thing and not a negative thing. It becomes a positive to say, oh, fear is there. That means there's some work to do. And I know you're going to say, oh, this is forever. When is it going to end? And the truth is, it never ends because we're an eternal being. This is one moment. This physicalness is one moment in time for us, an eternity that we are constantly learning and growing and expanding our capacity for fulfillment. That's what we're wanting, not that we're having to do the work. You know, again, if you're training yourself in academics, training yourself as a musician or an artist or an athlete or a career, your calling is so strong and compelling. Is you don't care how much work it takes because you're going towards something that feels fulfilling. This is the same thing. Is when you know what you want and you want that sense of fulfillment, you're willing to do the work. And that's exciting. That's exciting. And you're willing to make, it's like again, with the painting, when I'm able to make a stroke or something that's perfect in the moment with my painting, it's like, that's an accomplishment and it feels good. And I want to do it again. And it feels the same way when in this human development work is incrementally, it's like, oh my God, I'll never get there. I'll never get to the place of making the, cocoon and the metamorphosis. I'll never be the butterfly. But over time, as you're progressing, and this is in the boot camp for self-transformation, as you're progressing, you're going, wow, I like that feeling of progression. I like what's happening when I'm progressing. I like the consequences of what I'm doing. I want to do more. And that's what this is like. So first is like, oh my God, it'll never end. But as you become more comfortable with the process, no, I don't like feeling uncomfortable. No, I don't like going into those trauma states. No, I don't like to do all that stuff. I don't. So I'm not doing it because it's like masochistic. It's because it's how you heal. It's how I heal. And that's what I want for you. When you're looking at yourself, and in this process, like, am I narcissistic? It's like, we're all narcissistic. So the degree to which it's working for you is the degree it works for you. The degree to which it's creating suffering or frustration or disappointment, that's just good to know. And then you go, I want to shift this so that I can feel more comfortable being me. I can be my more authentic self. Quite often people will say, well, does that mean I have to, be in poverty and wear, ashes and, dust bags? Do I have to give up money? Do I have to give up fun? Do I have to? It's like, no, hell no. You can have all the fun you're willing to have. You can have all the beauty. You can have all of the riches. You can have all the travel. You can have it all. And it can come from a place of authenticity in your heart. It's self-made. It's self-propelled. It's self-creation that you're doing, as opposed to using and manipulating people for your well-being. And again, if you're using people and there's a collaboration, I'll use you for this and you can use me for that, it's great. But when you're using people and you're not being open and honest about that, and it's really a sense of I'm better than you, I'm more important than you, then that could be hurtful to you in the long run. It'll certainly be hurtful to relationships. So that's something to look at. What did I want to say about that? I forget. So Byron Katie talks about loving what is. And if what is if what is right now brings you to a state of love, that's really cool. And if it doesn't, something to look at and say, I can question this for myself. And with all the resources in the world, therapists, psychologists, coaches, ministers, spiritual guides, psychiatrists, there's so many people that have the capacity to support and empower you. There's probably, I mean, there's 12-step programs for everything. And I am a real believer in 12-step programs. And in fact, it's got me to where I am now in terms of we're all recovering from our addiction to our interpretations based on the way that we were growing up and the way that's like, it means something. What most of us have made meaning of is that I'm wrong. We've made meaning of our life as I'm wrong, I'm bad, I'm worthless, I'm not lovable. I better do what other people want me to do so that I'll be loved and I won't die. That's pretty much it. So when we can say that's crazy, and it is crazy, then we can begin to own it and work with somebody who's working with you as a thinking partner to say, let's look at how this is looking. And can you do it differently? Are you willing to do it differently? What will you practice to make it different? Those are the questions. So know that there are people in the world that really want to support and empower you to do that. Marge says, I love this topic so much. It resonates deeply. Thanks, Marge. I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing that. So I was talking about loving what is. And so what we want is, if I want you to be in a state, again, Course in Miracles has been coming up a lot, but Course in Miracles is saying, if you're not in a state of deep contentment and trusting that you are supported and loved and helped all the time, then you got some work to do. But I love that if you're not in a state of deep contentment, then you got some work to do. And that doesn't mean that things aren't challenging. Like I said, I think my life is more content than it's ever been. I'm more content with myself. I don't beat myself up so much anymore. And as I stop beating myself up, life gets better. Go figure. So the more that I can cultivate that knowing of deep contentment and cultivate the capacity to go, okay, I'm not in deep contentment. What's in the way? What's the obstacles in the way of me being in deep contentment, even serenity, even peace? What's in the way? I can ask myself those questions. You can ask yourself those questions. And again, the book Self-Empowerment 101 has a bunch of questions in it that help you to look at yourself and answer. And these aren't questions that are like, and the worst thing that we think is going to happen if we get help is I gotta look at how I'm a terrible, horrible person. And I don't want to look at how I'm a terrible, horrible person. So I'm not going to look, as opposed to saying, wow, you are so extraordinary. And I can't wait for you to discover how extraordinary you are. And yeah, there's ways of being that may not have been so cool. But my intention here is to say, hey, we're all narcissists. We're all narcissists. So you're not better than, worse than, you're just one of us. And as one of us, we're all here trying to learn how to get back to being your authentic self without all of the armor and all the patternings and all the strategies and all the manipulations. That's all. And it gets to be pretty fun, like I said. But it takes some work to get to the point where it gets to be pretty fun. That's what I want for you. So loving what is, if you're in a relationship or with your job, with your home, with your partner, with your children, and you can't be in love in this moment, you might want to get some thought support about that, a thinking partner of some sort to help you be able to either shift yourself so that you can see things differently, and then that creates a peaceful environment, or you need to get out. We want to fix other people, doesn't generally work. But if we work on ourselves in the way that we can, that sometimes shifts these relationships in ways that we just never imagined. But it's not about fixing you to fix them. It's fixing you. Sorry, I'm using that word fixing, but you're looking at who you be and how you be in a way that's much more fulfilling. And as you do that, your life becomes more fulfilling. And then you begin to either accept these relationships more effortlessly, or it becomes obvious that you have to leave or they have to leave or you have to leave your job or whatever that is. So that's really important to take that into consideration. The last thing I want to say, I'm looking at time, is I find, and I have said this to many people who are in recovery, and we're all in recovery, is to have a creative outlet. Do do what you love. Like find something that brings joy to you. So I actually do a few things. I do my painting, which is really really important to me. My writing, and writing can sometimes be it's part of my work, but when it comes effortlessly, which it comes 99% of the time, the initial downloads are so phenomenal that that's something that's a creative process for me, creativity. And so I let that happen. I know people who are who bring poetry into the world have that experience. So I really encourage people to cultivate a relationship with a hobby, a craft, music, even if you want to take in some study academics, but doing it because you love it, not because it's something that's required. So doing it for really, truly that self relationship piece is really important. And when we can cultivate that, then we get to know ourselves differently than in the strategies of being with other people. My daughter Alyssa loves puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, and it brings her into a state of peace and calm and just a different level of being where she gets to experience herself differently. She's in a different relationship with herself. There's no fear in those states. There may be challenges, much like with the writing or with for me with painting. It's very challenging, but I do what inspires me. I'm working on a painting now that it inspired me. I thought I couldn't do it, and I just said I'm not doing that because it's too can't do it. But it was like I'm inspired, so I'm going to do it, and so I've done it. If I had it, I would show you. Um, it's not done yet, but that where we can be truthful in our relationship with ourselves in terms of intuition and inspiration, what really inspires me, rather than saying, "Oh, I do this because my husband does this." I'll tell you, I learned so many things from different boyfriends because they had different interests. One boyfriend was really into race cars, Formula One, and I learned all kinds of stuff. Went to all kinds of Formula One races. Didn't have any interest in it, but I did it because that's what my boyfriend did. And the same with sailing. I went sailing for 2 years. All kinds of things that I did. My second husband was into drumming and all kinds of spiritual ritual kinds of stuff. Did all that up to a point, and then it was like, this is I want to do that. I want to do my thing, and that's when the relationship ended. Was when I started doing what I wanted to do. So just that's the way it is. But in that process, you're learning how to be in relationship with yourself in a more authentic way in relation to what you love, not to get something, not to have a person do something, no strategies, just because you love it. And I really really encourage people to do that, because if something happens in that process working towards mastery, that's phenomenal. I'm working on I knit as well, and I worked on this really cool sweater. It's almost done, and people go, "Oh my God, you're very good at this!" And it's like again, most of what's here I've learned on YouTube. I just am tenacious, the tenacity to learn something, and knitting is just a couple of basic things, and then it's just using that in over different ways. And people have been doing it for thousands of years, and all of this information is on YouTube, just like this is on YouTube. And so I can go there and I can watch people. I can watch 4, 5, 10, 15 different people doing different things and say, here's how I'm going to do it. It's the tenacity to want to learn. That's what's really important here. So that, in a sense, brings me to the final thing here is, if you want to learn who you are beyond your strategies, beyond the fear, beyond what people might decide or find out about you, it's really a beautiful and wonderful training and practice. Spiritual, it's a spiritual practice to allow the fulfillment of your human spirit. And that's what I want for you. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, I would love you to do that. It lets me know that you find this process fulfilling and interesting and valuable. And I keep wanting to do shorter ones, but they keep being an hour long. But you're at choice about that. So, and if you haven't liked it and you would like to like it, that would make me happy. That just, again, lets me know that what I'm sharing with you is of value to you. Next month, which is December 2021, we're going to be talking about living alone and all the different elements of that, the fears, the interpretations we make, how it is, what's it all about. And I won't be meeting on, I think it's the 5th. I won't be meeting the first Thursday of December. Maybe that's the 2nd. I think it's the 2nd. Anyway, I won't be meeting the first Thursday in, it doesn't matter. I'll see you guys when I see you. Thank you again for being here. Happy Thanksgiving to you in the United States, and I'll talk to you another time. Okay, bye for now. I'm leaving here.